Hi, I'm Jamie Thompson, 29, graphic designer in Sheffield, and apparently not the biological child of the man I called dad for 3 decades. Life used to be simple. Bad coffee, mediocre clients, quiet weekends spent pretending to be fine. Then came the party, you know. The one where my dear old dad thought it'd be hilarious to announce in front of the entire family that I'm not his son. Yeah, that one. So it's my dad's 60th. Big do, apparently. Mom's gone full M&S buffet mode. There's bunting that says, still got it. He hasn't. And someone's put a playlist on that swings wildly between ABBA and aggressive drum and bass. Very on-brand for the kind of family that thinks a cheese. Hedgehog counts as sophistication. I turn up present in hand, bit of a miracle really. Considering I nearly stayed home just to rearrange my Tupperware drawer, thought maybe, just maybe, this would be one of those rare family moments where no one gets drunk, no one mentions Brexit, and no one casually rips open a decade-old emotional wound for sport. Spoiler, no such luck. Dad's working the room like a Poundland Gatsby, telling the same 4 stories he always does. That one about getting scouted. For Sheffield Wednesday, he wasn't. The one about how kids these days can't change a tire, he can't. And something vaguely misogynistic about Lorraine from accounts, all while double-fisting Prosecco like it's the antidote to having feelings. I stand there nursing a warm echo falls in my crippling emotional baggage when he clinks his glass and goes, right everyone, quick toast. And I think, oh God, here we go. Maybe he's going to say something heartfelt. Maybe he'll thank Mum for sticking with him through 5 decades of emotional constipation. Maybe, and this was the real fantasy, he'll look at me and say something vaguely fatherly for the first time since 1997, but no. He looks dead at me, raises his glass and goes, "You're not my biological child, so I forgot to put your name in the will." Then laughs, like he's just delivered the punchline of the year. Like it's some hilarious bit of banter we're all meant to find charming. You know, like tax fraud or adultery. The room erupts. Absolute howling. Cousin Mark's nearly choking on a sausage roll. Gran's wheezing into her gin like someone just revived her. Even Mum gives this weird tight-lipped smile that says, I'm going to scream into a pillow later, but not just yet. And me? I just stand there, smile politely, die a little inside, because apparently public emotional evisceration is the new party game. Right after pin the passive aggression on the black sheep, I place my gift on the table. Just a single sheet of paper, folded all nice like it's got secrets, and it does. But no one notices, because they're all too busy congratulating Dad on his comedic timing. Like he's suddenly the sodding Ricky Gervais of family trauma. So yeah, happy birthday, you old git. You got your moment. Hope it was worth it. Right in the middle of his grand toast. The bit where everyone's supposed to raise their glasses and pretend they're moved by 50 years of Dad's mediocre life choices. He stops, smirks. That smug look at me. Twinkle in his eye that screams, I'm about to ruin everything for the entertainment of the peanut gallery. And then, with the subtlety of a sledgehammer to a greenhouse, he casually drops the bombshell. Well, since you're not my biological child, I didn't put you in the will. Laughter, proper laughter. Like he'd just invented the wheel of comedy or discovered a new Brexit scandal to distract us all. Everyone's guffawing, as if this was the punchline at the end of some clever joke. You know, like why did the chicken cross the road? But with extra family dysfunction. Meanwhile, I'm standing there like the unpaid extra in a Greek tragedy no one ordered, let alone wanted to see, because honestly, it felt like I'd just been cast as the tragic sidekick in someone else's farce, the one who wanders onto the stage with a sad expression and absolutely 0 lines to defend himself. I'm half expecting a spotlight to shine down on me while the audience tuts and whispers, isn't it a bit cruel? But nope. They're too busy wiping tears of mirth from their eyes, and here's the kicker. The man doing this is my dad, or at least, the bloke who signed the birth certificate and once claimed he'd always love me no matter what. Ironic, right? Like finding out your favorite chippy has been using cardboard instead of fish, or realizing the only reason the council finally fixed your potholes was because a reporter was nearby. It's one of those moments where the universe shrugs and goes, yeah, sorry mate, this is just how it's going to be. In my head, I'm running through every polite, British passive-aggressive response known to mankind. Oh, that's hilarious, Dad. Did you come up with that all by yourself? No? Oh, well, how utterly original. Brilliant. Next. You can tell me you've been hiding my actual birthday for years. Spoiler alert, you have. But out loud? Nothing. Just a blank stare, like I'm a malfunctioning robot processing a system error. Because sometimes, words just pack their bags and leave without notice. Meanwhile, the party carries on like nothing's happened. People chatting about the weather, the price of a pint, and who's the least likely to survive a night in the council estate. And there I am thinking, this is what it's come to. Public humiliation, served with a side of party canapes. So yeah, the surprise announcement. Except the only surprise was how many people found it funny. Me? I'm just trying to figure out if I can sneak off for a cigarette without anyone noticing, or if I'll be the next joke on the buffet table. Inside, I'm spiraling. Full Shakespearean meltdown. Is this a betrayal I see before me? The dagger of daddy issues unsheathed, and glinting in the soft light of disappointment? Something like that. Very poetic, very BBC 2 after 10 p.m. Outwardly? Oh, I just nodded, smiled, like some emotionally suppressed Labrador trying to pretend it isn't being kicked in the soul. Because apparently, quiet seething is my new default setting, somewhere between mildly haunted and actively disassociating. The worst part? No one even noticed. Not the fake laughter still echoing from Dad's little will announcement. Not Aunt Carol telling someone loudly that I'd always been a bit sensitive. And certainly not my cousin Dom, who, bless him, was too busy doing tequila, shots with himself like it was Freshers, week all over again. So what did I do? Well, I walked up to the gift table, like some emotionally broken Santa Claus, sack of childhood trauma slung over one shoulder, blank expression, dead eyes, and placed my carefully wrapped present down, right next to the pile of sweaty envelopes and lies, because I, dear listener, had actually brought a gift, not just a bottle of Asda Prosecco and a passive-aggressive smile, an actual, honest-to-God thoughtful present. Because despite everything, I still held on to that pathetic little sliver of hope that maybe this time, we'd have a nice moment, maybe a hug, a sincere thank you, a crumb of affection. You know, something to fill the gaping emotional void that's been growing in me since Dad missed my year 6 nativity and told me Joseph was a bit of a simp. Anyway, I put the gift down and I swear to God the table judged me. All those tacky cards with glittery "to a wonderful dad" scrawled in Tesco. Pen, just staring at me like I was the intruder, the outsider, the uninvited plot twist in a party that was never really meant to include me. And in that moment I had a sort of emotional vertigo, like my whole childhood suddenly tilted on its axis. The football matches he never came to. The birthday card signed from both of us in the same handwriting. The times he said I was just like your mum, but not in a nice way, more like I'd inherited the stubbornness and none of the charm. Everything suddenly made a little too much sense. Like when you realize your mate's girlfriend wasn't just staying over a lot, or when a politician says to be perfectly clear, and you instinctively know lies are about to happen. So yeah, cue emotional freefall, falling through 30 years of pretending, landing face first in the realization that the man I called Dad had finally said the quiet part out loud, and everyone else just laughed, like it was fine, like I should be grateful for the punchline. So the gift? Yes, the gift. Capital G, the main event, my pièce de résistance. The passive-aggressive Mona Lisa of birthday gestures. Now let's be clear. This wasn't some lovingly wrapped Amazon impulse buy or a world's best dad mug I grabbed from a petrol station on the way over. Oh no, this was a statement, an artistic expression of my soul-crushing disappointment, a protest wrapped in apathy sealed with quiet rage and a light dusting of petty. What I brought, and I say this with full pride, was a single sheet of plain white A4 paper. No card, no envelope, no glittery with love sticker from W.H. Smith. Just the paper naked stark. Unapologetically minimalist like the emotional support I received growing up. Now, depending on your point of view, it either looked like a last-minute panic gift from a GCSE student or a hostile legal notice. And honestly, both are spiritually accurate. I approached the table like I was on some holy quest, family still buzzing around me, high on prawn cocktail crisps and generational denial. Dad watching me, probably expecting another bottle of famous grouse, or something equally depressing. Instead, I locked eyes with him, like proper dramatic, like we were in the final scene of a very low-budget ITV drama, and gave him a smile. Not a real smile, obviously. Those are for people with stable childhoods. No, this was the smile. The I'm completely dead inside, but still polite enough to ruin your evening tastefully smile. Then, with all the flair of a magician who's been recently divorced and can't afford rabbits anymore, I took that paper and ripped it. Right there in front of him. In front of the family, in front of the cake, in front of his precious ego. No words, no drama, just one slow, deliberate tear, then another and another. Tiny little shreds fluttering to the floor like snowflakes made of resentment. You could hear a pin drop. Well, a pin, or my mother's gasp from across the room as she clutched her pearls like she was in an episode of Downton. Abby and someone had just said sex out loud. Dad stared at me. Not angry, not sad, just confused. Like he couldn't quite compute why his not son would do something so petty. Mate, you basically disowned me over a vol au vent. I brought restraint to that party. You should be thanking me. I didn't set fire to the buffet. What was on the paper, you ask? Well, that's the best bit, isn't it? Because he didn't know yet. All he knew was that his favorite punching bag just gave him a gift and then immediately destroyed it, which metaphorically is kind of perfect when you think about it. Give the man something meaningful. Let him believe it's his and then rip it out of his hands. Sound familiar, Dad? Anyway, back to the party. Silence, still awkward. Thick enough to butter a crumpet with. I just walked away. Didn't explain a thing, didn't look back. Because sometimes the most British thing you can do is ruin someone's day without raising your voice, then leave before they've processed it. And of course, the moment I walked away from the wreckage of my paper-based protest, the room did what it always does in the face of deeply uncomfortable family tension. It laughed. Not nervous chuckles or polite titters. Oh no. Full-blown. Wheeze it till you're purple. He's such a character. Laughter. Cousin Linda practically doubled over, clutching her Prosecco flute like it was an Olympic torch. She let out this honk laugh. The kind that makes you question whether she's choking or summoning a goose from the afterlife. Mom, bless her, hit me with that patented motherly look. You know the one. The not now Jamie stare. Neatly layered over, this is why I should have married Greg from accounting. He had a pension and a fully working sense of decorum, all expressed with just one pursed lip and a quiet sip of rosé. Iconic. And Dad? Oh, he bloody loved it at first. He chuckled, full belly laugh like he was the star of his own sitcom. Like I'd just done a cheeky party trick, or perhaps slipped on a banana peel while declaring my eternal love for a ham sandwich. Because you see, and for a man who just admitted, I'm not his biological child in the middle of his own birthday toast. He had incredible confidence that I'd find the whole thing hilarious too, like this was some sort of offbeat bonding moment between distant relatives in a Channel 4 dramedy. And then he saw my face. That was the moment the laughter caught in his throat. Mid-guffaw, mid-smirk, you could see it, that slow-motion horror dawning across his stupidly proud little grin, like he was finally realizing that no, Jamie isn't playing along. Jamie isn't bantering. Jamie isn't the quirky background character in the sitcom of his life. Jamie's had a bit of a moment, a bit of a public, paper-ripping, passive-aggressive meltdown, and the room is no longer quite sure if this is all just part of the act. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. See, what most of them don't get is that I'm not funny on purpose. I'm funny the way bin fires are funny, tragic, hot, and probably full of discarded family secrets. The kind of funny that gets you therapy vouchers for Christmas and backhanded compliments from your boss like, you've got such a unique energy. So while the rest of the family went back to nibbling sausage rolls and pretending we weren't descending into a very public, existential crisis, I just stood there, stewing in my own internal monologue, and 3 decades of unprocessed rejection. I didn't say anything. Didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't even flinch. Because this right here, is what growing up in a British family teaches you. Be quiet, be polite, be devastated, tastefully. And that, dear viewers, is how I became the evening's entertainment. Not the golden boy, not the beloved son, but the emotionally repressed, sarcasm-wielding party trick that everyone claps at awkwardly, before going back to pretending they love each other. Cheers, Dad. Happy bloody birthday. Now here's the thing about Dad being biologically, let's say, inaccurate. It wasn't news, not to me anyway. Oh no. This particular emotional car crash had been parked in my subconscious for years, quietly leaking oil onto the pavement of my self-worth. See, I knew, had known, had receipts literally, But being British, I'd opted to handle it in the traditional way, internalize it completely, develop a complex, and make passive-aggressive jokes about it until one of us died. I never told him I knew. Never told him about the 23andMe results or the months of emails with the solicitor, or the weirdly friendly lab tech who kept trying to chat to me about ancestry while swabbing my mouth like I was auditioning for CSI East Midlands, because I wanted him to be the one to bring it up, to look me in the eye and say, "Hey mate, sorry for raising you like a tax write-off. Turns out I'm not your biological dad, but I'd still like to be your emotionally unavailable patriarch if that's all right." But instead, he made it a punchline at his party. A little ha-ha, you're not my kid moment sandwiched between the quiche and the Colin the Caterpillar cake. Like I was just some mildly embarrassing anecdote in the sitcom of his life. The emotional equivalent of tripping over your own shoelaces and landing in your unresolved trauma. So yeah, when I handed him that single sheet of paper, I wasn't just being petty. I was making a point. A silent, dramatic, legally binding point. Because that A4 masterpiece, it was the document, the big one. The one we'd spent months drafting. A full-blown acknowledgement of paternity. My signed, sealed, witnessed by a notary, who looked like she hadn't smiled since Thatcher resigned. That sheet of paper was his last chance to show he gave a toss. To step up, take responsibility, or at the very least pretend to be a half-decent human being in front of a room full of people who still thought he was worth celebrating. And I shredded it. Right there, in front of 40 people and a middle-aged caterer called Sandra who was just trying to keep the mini sausage rolls warm. You could almost feel the temperature drop. Not dramatically, and we're British after all, but enough that the small talk started to turn slightly panicked. A few fake coughs, the sound of someone nervously stirring a gin and tonic, like it was a cauldron of regret. Dad just stood there, frozen, still gripping his glass like he might toast his way out of this one. But the penny dropped eventually. You could see it land in real time. That slow dawning horror that maybe his witty little bombshell had just blown up his own legacy. Because what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that by ripping up that document, I'd effectively made it legally impossible for him to be recognized as my father. Not just emotionally, but officially. Bye-bye paternity, bye-bye inheritance, bye-bye to the last fragile thread of plausible deniability that held this family farce together. So yes, I came to the party with a plan, a silent nuke wrapped in A4, and when I left, casually, calmly, like I hadn't just detonated decades of unspoken tension over a trestle table of buffet food. I left with my dignity intact, or what's left of it anyway, because if life's taught me anything, it's this. Sometimes the only way to be heard in a family like mine is to burn the paperwork. So, silence. Proper soul-clenching, kill me now silence. The kind you usually only hear just after someone suggests playing charades at Christmas, or when your mum says we need to talk and you haven't even done anything yet. He stopped laughing. Mid-chuckle, mid-pint, mid-pride. You could actually see the smug drip off his face like bad gravy off a frozen roast. And then the color went, drained out of him so fast I half expected a reboot screen to flash behind his eyes, like he was buffering. Please wait while we attempt to reconnect your shame. He looked around at me, at the crowd, at the shredded proof of his own idiocy snowing down like Christmas in hell, and panicked, fully scrambled, bent down and started grabbing the pieces, like a toddler trying to shove toothpaste back in the tube after a tantrum. But no amount of sticky tape was fixing that kind of broken. This wasn't Blue Peter. You don't get a badge for attempting to patch up 2 decades of emotional neglect with a glue stick and a guilty conscience, and still no one said a word. The room had the atmosphere of a funeral for a vibe. Even the cake looked awkward, sitting there all colorful and chirpy, like it hadn't just witnessed a generational implosion. Colin the Caterpillar. More like Colin the emotional support insect. People just froze, except Cousin Linda, who had the audacity to still be holding her phone up like she was live streaming the family apocalypse for her book club. And bless her, she'd title it something tasteful like Broken Bonds and Bouger Buffets, a memoir. Mom, meanwhile, looked like she was internally calculating how fast she could fake a stroke to leave without helping clear up. She gave me that look, the one, the passive, aggressive, socially mandated, please stop ruining the family name one. The same one she used when I came out, or when I said I didn't want Yorkshire pudding that one time. Unforgivable things. Dad finally stood up straight, face pale, still holding a tiny sliver of paper like it was going to explain itself. Honestly, it was tragic. Not in a Greek theater noble fate way, more in a he's about to cry in a Weatherspoon's lavatory kind of way. He opened his mouth like he was going to say something. Some great defense. Some tearful confession maybe even. I'm sorry. But instead, he just let out a little puff of air, like a deflating bouncy castle at a party no one really wanted to go to in the first place. And that's when I realized he hadn't just lost the paper. He'd lost the narrative. His version of events. The nice, tidy, emotionally sterile story he'd been telling himself, and everyone else for years, gone in one rip. So I stood there, not triumphant, not proud, just done. Like when you finally hand in your resignation and walk out of a job that's been draining the will to live out of you since 2007. No speech, no gloating, just me, the sound of 1,000 judgments hanging in the air like cheap perfume, and him, face slack heart, hollow, still desperately trying to put together the pieces of something he never really held in the first place. That, my friend, is what you call poetic justice, British edition. Served lukewarm. Right after the buffet. So here we are. The emotional grenade has gone off. Shrapnel in the vol au vent. Blood on the bunting. And right on cue, Aunt Sheila kicks off like she's auditioning for EastEnders, clutching her pearls like she's just found out she's related to a commoner. She's screeching about betrayals and family secrets and how she always knew something wasn't quite right, which is rich coming from someone who's been divorced 3 times and still thinks astrology is a personality type. Meanwhile, Uncle Dave, oh God, Uncle Dave's decided this is his moment. Suddenly he's Nostradamus, saying things like, I always had me suspicions. You know, you never did look like your dad. Right. Because the man who once called Cluedo a government plot is now the voice of reason in the family. Mum's given up pretending. She's abandoned the charade of dignified hostess and is now knocking back white wine like it's a blood transfusion. By glass 3, she's doing that thing, where her mouth's smiling, but her eyes are screaming. She's also started calling everyone darling in that brittle way that means she's seconds away from setting the table on fire just to end it all. Across the room, cousin Linda's still filming. I swear she's going to put this entire emotional Armageddon on TikTok under Messy Family Drama Vibes Part 37. Her followers are probably loving it. Hashtag TraumaCore. Hashtag Cake and Chaos. And me, well, I'm sat in the corner with a slab of cake that tastes like sadness and budget margarine, picking at the icing like it owes me money, watching the entire scene unravel like it's the season finale of a show I didn't know I was starring in. Someone knocks over a vase. Someone else starts crying. Nan's muttering something about the war. And Dad's still just standing there, like a mannequin in a charity shop. Expression frozen. Like if he doesn't move, no one will notice he's the epicenter of this emotional Chernobyl. It's the kind of meltdown that doesn't just break the family. It rebrands it. We're no longer the mildly dysfunctional clan with questionable taste in curtains. We are now a full-blown Channel 5 documentary waiting to happen. Title pending, but definitely featuring the words, explosive revelations and shocking DNA twist. And you know what? In some weird tragicomic way, it's kind of beautiful. Everyone's masks off. The pretense is gone. No more fake smiles or housework love when no one actually cares. Just raw, unfiltered truth, served between sausage rolls and social ruin. I raise my paper plate in a silent toast. To honesty. To chaos. To Colin the Caterpillar. The only one who's held it together. Because in this family, apparently, nothing's sacred. Except the buffet. So, the dust settled. The caterer left. Mom pretended it never happened. And Dad? Well, Dad had a realization. The kind of slow-burning, gut-punching epiphany that hits you right in the spreadsheets. Turns out, shock horror. Disowning your only legal child during a buffet-based breakdown isn't exactly top-tier estate planning. Especially not when that child knows all your passwords. B has a solicitor with zero patience for emotional men over 50. And C once helped you hide money from the taxman and still has the screenshots. Oops. Suddenly I'm getting phone calls. Voicemails that start with hello son in that desperate, trying too hard tone that sounds like he's being held at gunpoint by his own consequences. Invitations to pop over for a chat, which we all know is code for please don't, to leave me to die alone in a recliner watching Homes Under the Hammer. And yes, he rewrote the will. Of course he did. Because the moment I shredded that paternity paper, I didn't just ruin the party. I ruined his plausible deniability. Turns out the legal system doesn't look too kindly on emotional impulse as a reason to unkid your kid, especially when said kid has spent the last 2 years assembling a folder of digital blackmail so comprehensive it could qualify for a BAFTA. So back in I went. Right there, page 2, under funeral requests and just above. Do not resuscitate unless the telly's on. But let's just say, this time, the terms were delightfully creative. I didn't just get reinstated. I got upgraded, executor of the estate, power of attorney, the whole shebang. Which means, when he eventually keels over from ego-induced exhaustion, I get to decide what happens to everything. And I do mean everything. The house? Already got plans for it. Thinking a sanctuary for emotionally neglected pets. Call it poetic. Call it petty. I call it balance. The car? Sold. Used the money for therapy. And a weekend away with someone who actually thinks I'm worth sticking around for. So technically that makes him part of my healing journey. Oh, and the funeral? If you think I'm not playing, you're so vain on a loop during the service. You have wildly misunderstood how deeply this petty runs. And before you ask, no, I don't feel guilty. Not even a bit. Because here's the thing about regret. It's a luxury for people who had the choice to do better. He didn't. He had decades. And he still chose pride over honesty. Control. Over connection. So when he rang me, all choked up and fragile like some soft-boiled egg of a man, asking if we could just move on, I told him the truth. We did move on. Only difference is, this time I'm in the front seat, and he's lucky I'm even letting him in the car. So, that's that. The party's over. The buffet's gone cold. The family's fractured like a Greg's sausage roll in a school bag. And me? Well, I walked out of that pastel nightmare of a living room with one thing I didn't have before: closure. Not the kind you get in therapy, obviously. I'm not made of money. The passive-aggressive kind. The British kind. The kind you wrap in sarcasm, shove in an envelope, and casually slide under the emotional front door of someone who thinks accountability is a personality flaw. Because let's be clear, I never needed his money. Not the inheritance, not the house, not the collection of antique whiskey bottles he kept for show but secretly drank during Match of the Day reruns. No, I needed him to know I knew that his secret wasn't a secret. That I'd grown up with a ticking time bomb in my DNA, and instead of running, I learned to hold the bloody thing. And I needed him to feel just an ounce of the powerlessness I'd felt. All those birthdays pretending. All those Father's Days writing cards that started with "to the best dad ever" and ended with a scream in my throat. So yeah, happy birthday, Dad. I brought you a present. It's called Poetic Justice in A4, hand-delivered, shredded, sprinkled across your living room like guilt confetti. Hope you liked it. No refunds. Because the thing is, and this is the bit he never quite got, you don't get to rewrite history just because it's inconvenient. You don't get to discard people like mismatched socks and expect them to come crawling back when your legacy starts to look a bit threadbare, especially not someone like me, someone who took law modules out of spite and passed with honors. So the next time you get the urge to publicly cut someone off, like a dramatic episode of EastEnders, maybe make sure you're not doing it in front of the one person in the room who understands both emotional damage and probate law. Because here's the twist. I didn't need to win. I just needed him to lose. And oh, he did. Beautifully. Now does it fix everything? No. Of course not. He's still him. I'm still me. We're still two people bound by history and hemorrhaging resentment like it's a competitive sport. But at least now the truth's out. Raw, ugly, public, and wrapped up in the legal equivalent of "sod you, I know my rights." So to anyone out there dealing with secret-keeping parents, messy truths, or dads who treat fatherhood like a part-time job with no pension, just know this. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to be petty. You are allowed to burn the paperwork. Because sometimes the only way to set yourself free is with a biro, a solicitor, and a very, very public shredder. Cheers, Dad. You always said I'd make you proud. Bet you didn't think it'd be like this.